Hey guys, wounds, bruises, and scars, the really fun stuff. So first off, you're gonna wanna start with a basic beat on your face, mostly because if you don't have makeup already on your face, those wounds, bruises, and scars aren't gonna blend very nicely. So, basic beat. So by now you guys have put on your basic stage face a couple of times. This should be pretty quick for you. So the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna look at injuries. So I'm gonna do 3 different examples. We're gonna do a black eye, we're gonna do a scar, and we're gonna do a cut. So first of all, black eyes. They're one of the most regularly used stage wounds, as they're really good for storytelling. So make sure you take plenty of research on your makeup morgue as to what a black eye looks like, and how a black eye changes over time. You'll see the way the colors start to change as the eye starts to heal, and especially if you've got a broken nose. Usually if you break your nose, you'll end up with 2 black eyes. Now what a black eye is when you've got bruising in the ocular cavity, the blood isn't able to circulate out as well, and so it tends to pool right against that eye bone. And so that's where you're gonna get your darkest colors at first, and then you'll see kind of the platelets start to move away. So as a black eye heals, you'll see yellows and greens start to move out away from the eye. This is something that's really useful to have good visual references for. So having that in your makeup morgue is going to be golden. So, a black eye. We're gonna do a slightly older black eye. So it's already starting to heal a little. We're gonna start with our lights and we're gonna go to our dark colors. So I'm gonna start with a little bit, got my bruise palette, a little bit of yellow. And the yellow is going to kind of be something that fades out and away over that cheekbone where your blood kind of pools right in where your eye circles are. Those platelets of yellow and green start to spread out over your face. So your next ring is gonna be some red irritation. Now I'm gonna start with a little bit on my sponge of red, and so that's really the next ring in. So this is where any fresh blood is pooling under the skin. So any place kind of just at that outer ring, and then I'm going to take my brush and do a slightly darker red. As you look at your research, sometimes you'll see just under the eye we'll collect some blood, and so these are specific placements for where kind of you've got blood starting to settle and not flow out of that bruise. The other thing I'm going to do is well, no, we'll do that later. And then I'm going going to take some of that red, the red brown on the bruise wheel. That'll be my next layer in. So that's kind of the blood that hasn't gone anywhere for a couple of days. So as blood sits there in those broken cells, and you'll notice as you look at your research on bruises, especially around the eye, sometimes you'll have places where it won't show. So some places around the eye won't necessarily collect blood. So you can clear those away. And last of all, we're gonna do our darkest dark, so that really dark, dark purple. And that's gonna be right in next to the nose and really make that. So this is a pretty bad black eye. Next, I'm going to take my stipple sponge. I'm going to take a little bit of red and kind of stipple that irritation out. And then I'm going to take a little bit of that dark purple and stipple that in there. Oh. So the other thing you'll notice when you look at someone who's got a black eye is there's usually some swelling. So in order to describe that swelling, you guys know you've already put your shadow in, because that's the shadow of the bruise. But if you put a little bit of highlight over your eyelid, that can make that look nice and puffy. So, oh man, rough. And in fact, to accentuate this, let's go ahead and do a broken nose. So when you break your nose, usually it's right at that spot in between where your nose changes from bone up here to cartilage down here. That's your weak spot, and that's usually, if you bash your nose, where you're gonna get that bruising. So we're gonna start with a little bit of that red, so a little bit of that red irritation just under where that break would be. And then add a little bit of that purple. I'm gonna do a little bit of shadow across the top to indicate that there would be a little swollen bump there. And of course, anywhere there's highlight, or anywhere there's shadow, you want a little bit of highlight. So, and if you want to get really sassy, I'm going to take my brown pencil. Actually, lies. I'm going to take my black pencil. I'm going to do a little split across my nose. And in that split, I'm going to take my blood. Give it a good shake. You need very, very little of this. I'm gonna put it on my smallest brush. Little tiny amount. And I'm just going to run it across where I've already drawn that little break in the skin. Now, if you want to do a really nice, believable broken nose, if I'd actually broken my nose, there would be a black eye on the other side. Man, it's tough, but this is just for demonstration purposes. So there he is, a lovely bruised black eye. As you look at your bruise and black eye research, I want you to look at how the colors you put into that bruise kind of spread over time. So look at, fresh bruises where it's just red irritation and how those turn to purple and how they turn to green and yellow. And that will be useful to you. All right, so then scars. Scars are really fun. And scars are relatively easy. So if I wanted to do a scar, much like all of your highlight and shadow that you've been doing so far, a scar is just that on a very small scale. So we're gonna start with our natural pencil and we're gonna give ourselves a nice scar. So this is just to give us a basic idea of where we want that scar to be. So then I'm gonna take my little teeny tiny brush. I'm gonna take my shadow color and I'm gonna go right along that edge. Now, you're going to take your lip pencil. Actually, I'm gonna take this guy. Or you can also use the red out of your bruise wheel. Actually, let's do that. And give that scar, run it right along that dark line. So you've basically got a line that's one side shadow and one side red. Next, we're going to take our highlight and run it along either side of that scar. And the highlight is the one that we're going to blend out. So your shadow color and your red stay pretty close, but your highlight gets blended away. So there it is, a nice scar. Lastly, I'm gonna do a fresh abrasion. So like you just kind of skinned your knee or your hand. Actually, we could do some bloody knuckles. This would be fun. Super, super easy. So again, stipple sponge, a little bit of red right across the knuckles. You really want to make sure it gets right nice and dark along the knuckle line, like right where you'd hit nice and hard. I'm then gonna do a little bit of that dark purple really lightly into right across the crown of those knuckles. And lastly, I'm going to do a little bit of blood, so I'm just dabbing that across very gently as blood, fake blood rather, will spread. But being very specific as to where those abrasions are. Really. Actually, yeah. Do a little more stipple. Work that down the knuckle a little to give it that nice texture. So there it is. There are a couple of wound, bruises, and scars options. There are myriad instructional videos all over the internet. So go forth, find the particular kind of wound that you guys want to fake, and have some fun.